Thanks for that info. I'll look at it tonight.
You're welcome. I gotta go looking for them.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Mr. Devon. All right. The meeting will hereby call to order. If we could all rise. Bow your head. Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. We thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for the opportunity to come here, Lord, even in a time of health emergency situation where we have to stay separated, Lord. We pray for your healing. Pray for your healing of our town, our county, our state, our nation, Lord. We pray for a physical and emotional and spiritual healing, Lord, that only you can do. We pray for wisdom as we start this meeting, Lord. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Mr. Mestis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, be seated. I know, Sullivan, that you stood up. It's time to sit down. All right.
John Wayne said.
All right. Board of Finance, do we need a motion to go into that meeting? And is there a second?
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? I'm assuming that it was unanimous, unless someone objects otherwise. Okay. Ms. Talby, how are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Fortner, members of the commission. I just wanted to take a minute and update you on some investment things that have been happening. In the past, I think about the past 4 years, we've had public trust advisors handle our investments, and they've done a wonderful job. But as we've spent down the 2015 bond series, there was a minimum balance caveat in the contract, and as we've dropped below that minimum balance with our investments, then there's been additional fees that have been charged. So with that and the idea that we're going to be drawing down the investments, we went ahead and terminated the contract with Public Trust Advisors. And I will be handling the investments. Is it me?
No, it's actually, it's you, Carol.
It is me.
There it is. Keep going.
It's the heavy breathing. It's
Right.
nerves. Anyway, I will be doing the majority of whatever investing we do. We don't plan on doing too much over the next several months. The other situation is our funds have been kept in the U.S. Bank custodial account, and my hope was to keep it there and just handle the investments from there. But they wanted us a kind of an expensive fee just to keep it there.
Right.
And so I did some research and talked to a couple of other people. I included Mike and Jim Cox, and we just kind of looked at options, and we decided that the best thing to do, we have a Moreton account that is, they work with RBC Capital Markets, which is the investment firm. And so we have an investment account with them. So we're just going to move our securities from US Bank over to the Moreton Capital account, which will be nice because they'll all be there. With the exception of any local CDs, all of our investments will be in one place. So that is all I wanted to share with you. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Deputy Treasurer Talby?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is there requirements that would cause us not to be able to move all the funds into one place? Or, so you're in the part that we don't hardly have anything to know about. I mean, we don't know much about that end of investing of the capital and stuff that we sit on. So this is a good move, you think? Or is
Yes.
it? Okay. And it fits the guidelines of the state. I guess that's good.
No, Commissioner or Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Crowley, no, there's not any reason that we're aware of that we wouldn't want to keep it in one place. And I really worked with Jim Cox from the auditor perspective to make sure that we didn't have any problems with that also. But I think it'll be a good move. They'll be secure in one spot. We don't have any obligation with Moreton Capital. I can do an independent bid pool if I choose and move money. I can work with another broker and still put it in that account. So,
But it looked like a good thing to do.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a,
Motion to move out of and into the regular meeting.
thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? There are none. Because again, I'll remind everyone that because we're doing this remotely, that I'm going to assume and ask after every vote that the votes are unanimous, because that's a requirement by a recommendation from the Attorney General to abide by our Open Meetings Act. All right, we are in our regular meeting. First item is approval of agenda. Mr. Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Just one change tonight on new business item number 3. Melissa Wood will be presenting that item instead of Diana Chapman. Otherwise, the agenda is as presented.
May I have a motion? Yes.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to approve the agenda as amended and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? There is none. I'm going to assume that the vote was unanimous unless someone speaks up otherwise. Okay. If it's for me, I'm not here. All right. Next is the consent agenda. And number 1 is the approval for the regular meeting minutes for the May 5th meeting. Number 2 is the approval for the treasurer check register for April of 2020. Number 3 is the approval for finance check registers for April of 2020. Number 4 is the renewal of proposal 17-18-19, which is the employee assistance program services to Choices Behavioral Health. Number 5 is the consideration for award of bid 19-20-18, which is the purchase and installation of new outdoor surveillance system and control room equipment and furnishings to Next Level of Farmington, New Mexico. Number 6 is consideration of award of bid 19-20-20, price agreement for the purchase of surface treatment aggregate to multiple source providers. Number 7, consideration of approval of resolution number -19-20-62, accepting the New Mexico County's 20-21 wildfire risk reduction for rural counties grant to San Juan County Fire. And number 8 on the consent is consideration of award of bid 19-20-17, purchase of 2 new ambulances to Gen-T Ambulances of Elkhart, Indiana. And the final thing is number 9, consideration and request to serve as the fiscal agent to apply for the community DWI prevention grant. Does anyone have any questions about anything on the consent agenda? If there are none, then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? It appears there are none, and the vote was unanimous to approve the consent agenda. That gives us to new business. Item number 1, consideration to apply for the coronavirus emergency supplemental funding. Mike Mestis, Emergency Manager.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Staff is here today to seek your approval to apply for the coronavirus emergency supplemental funding grant in the amount of $127,158. This grant will help supplement what the county has spent already, and this way we won't have to wait the year or so that it'll take for FEMA to reimburse us. What we can use this grant for is to utilize prevention, preparing, response to the coronavirus issues that we've been dealing with. Also, it'll pay for overtime, including law enforcement and medical personal protective equipment. hiring of supplies such as gloves, masks, sanitizer, training, travel expenses, etc. And stand for any questions. And I also have my grants manager here as well to answer any further grant questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, questions?
So this one takes us out of any kind of a match and puts it at 100%. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Craig. This is an actual 100% funding, and then that way we don't have to seek the funding from the FEMA, which is a 75-25 match. So kind of helps us out.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Then a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries, and I'm going to assume that the vote was unanimous as I heard no opposition. All right, item number 2, consideration of request for approval of memorandum of agreements with Sandoval and Torrance County authorizing DWI and incarceration services for fiscal year 2021. Is Jennifer?
Mitchell. Yeah, she should be on.
Oh, there she is. Hello, Jennifer.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Appreciate you having me today. So today I'm bringing before you a request for the approval, as you know, of the MOAs, 2 MOAs, one for Sandoval County and one for Torrance County, to allow for the provision of jail-based treatment services for DWI offenders from those respective counties. Historically, we have participated with those counties in these agreements to provide these services for offenders who are involved in primarily in their DWI programs, their local DWI programs. We have historically taken approximately anywhere from 3 to 7, up to 7 offenders from those counties a year. It's been rather sparse in the last year, and we haven't actually had anybody from those counties, but each of those counties expressed an interest in wanting to still participate in an MOA if there is a possibility that they have funding available to allow their offenders to receive treatment services from our jail-based treatment program. So with that, I stand for questions.
So I note in the agreement that the maximum is $25,000. So that means we couldn't accept more than 10 anyway from them. Is that right?
That's correct. That's mostly, as I understand it, that's at their request.
Okay. And that's for our 28-day center. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions? Anybody other questions for Jennifer Miller?
I'd move to approve.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the approval of memorandum of agreements with Sandoval and Torrance County. Is there any other discussion? There appear not. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It appears there was no opposition and the vote was unanimous. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Next is item number 3 under new business. It's consideration for award of proposal 19-20-22. Major medical aggregate and specific stop loss insurance to Sun Life Financial of Wesley Hills, Massachusetts. Melissa Wood.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. So yeah, we're just updating our 4-year contract. We went out for proposals. We had 5, but 3 were tied to a complete overhaul of what they wanted. So 2 were reviewed, and Sun Life Financial at 150 specific, which means right now anybody on the medical plan that incurs $150,000 in claims expense with medical and prescription combined would allow a plan to then be refunded anything over that specific amount. It's just to help with overall expenditures. We felt like staying at 150,000 this year was prudent, with all of the potential of some cases being maybe hospitalized for conditions related to COVID illness, as well as just the other normal expenses that we have from year to year. I will stand for any questions.
All right. Anybody have any questions? It appears that you are also on the committee that made this recommendation. Is that right, Melissa?
Mr. Chair, that is correct, sir.
Okay. We sent out 5 bids and 2 proposals that really met our proposal. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
I'd move to award the proposal 19-20-22 major medical aggregate and specific stop loss insurance.
Is there a second? And second by Mr. Commissioner Beckstead. All right. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any opposition? It appears there is none and the vote was unanimous. All right. Next is item number 4, and that's consideration of adoption of ordinances 108, 109, 110, 111, and 112, amending taxes in ordinance 24, 25, 62, 45, and 60.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Echols,
before
yes.
he starts, I guess I have a question, Mr. Eccles, does this need to be in an open hearing when we do that?
We will.
Okay.
That was going to ask that we do that. And what I was also
Separately?
going to ask is that we deal with them separately. Because being tax rules, we need to strictly follow all of the provisions of the statute for adoption of tax ordinances.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we move into an open hearing for number A, adoption of ordinance 108.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? There is no opposition. The vote is unanimous. We are now in open hearing for ordinance 108. Mr. Echols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. In the last 2 legislative sessions, the legislature has de-earmarked several of the local government taxes which could be imposed. Ordinance 108 amends ordinance 24 to reduce from 1/4 to 1/8 the amount of that tax dedicated to the Indigent Healthcare Fund. In effect, what it does is it frees up 1/8 for whatever purposes the commission determines is appropriate. I'll be happy to answer any questions or to respond to any public comment we might have.
All right. Is there any public comment? Any commissioner comment?
No.
Apparently, there's no comment. All right. Mr. Echols.
We probably should adopt this one and before we go to the next one.
May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 108?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? There was none. It appears that the vote was unanimous. The ordinance 108. Mr. Crowley, would you like to make a motion to ordinance 109?
Do we close this open hearing on that one first?
We can just continue on.
Okay. I would move for adoption of ordinance number 109.
So we move into the hearing.
Well, yeah, we don't have to have a motion to go into the hearing because it's required as part of the consideration.
All right, so we're in open hearing for ordinance 109, and there's a motion on the floor. Is it okay if I take a second, Mr.
Sure,
Echols?
and then we can have a public hearing.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and second it myself, and now we're into the part of the public hearing where Mr. Echols will explain what this one does.
So ordinance number 25 originally created the environmental gross receipts tax which was a 1/8 gross receipts tax. That tax also was de-earmarked by the legislature, so that you can use that 1/8 for environmental or any other purposes that you chose to use it for. By the way, I would point out that this ordinance, like the one before us, was published in the Daily Times on the 22nd of April, which is within 14 days before today's hearing. I'd still have any questions for you or comments from the public.
All right, any comments or questions from the public or the commission? There being none, no other discussion, there's a motion on the floor and there's a second. We'll therefore vote on ordinance adopting ordinance 109, which amends ordinance number 25. Those in favor say aye. Aye. And oppose. It appears that the vote was unanimous in support of ordinance 109. Mr. Crowley, we got this down. If you want to go ahead and make the motion for ordinance 110, we'll have a second, and then we'll have a hearing.
Move for adoption of ordinance 110.
I'll second it. Now we're up for discussion and a hearing. Mr. Echols.
Thank you. Ordinance number 110 amends ordinance number 62 by removing the dedication of a 1/4 gross receipts tax from the County Fire Protection Fund to unrestricted. It also was published April 22nd.
All right. We're now at the point where we have public discussion or questions from the public or commissioners. If anyone has any questions.
No.
There being none, there is a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. There's no more discussion. If you're in favor of ordinance 110 that amends ordinance number 62, please vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? It appears there was no opposition and that the vote on ordinance 110 was unanimous. Commissioner Crowley.
I would move to adopt ordinance number 111, which amends ordinance 45.
I'll second it, and now we'll go into discussion and open hearing. Please, Mr. Echols.
Ordinance 111 amends ordinance number 45. Number 45 originally dedicated what was commonly referred to as the third 1/8 of 1% from construction or operation of a multi-purpose county juvenile detention facility to unrestricted. It too was published in the Daily Times on April 22nd.
All right, we're at the point.
It would change it from revenue from the operation of a county correctional facility to unrestricted. It too was published April 22nd, and like all of the other ordinances, its effective date goes along with the effective date of the statute of July 1, 2020.
All righty. Is there any other, there's a public hearing, time for public comment, time for public discussion, questions, public or commission?
Mr. Chair, I think it would be probably good to just clarify that these funds becoming unrestricted doesn't mean we're not going to supply money to operate the facilities, adult detention center. It just makes it so we don't have to track so much the way that it is used, from transferring in and transferring out from one line item to another item. And so it streamlines it a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Crowley, 100% agree with your assessment. It gives the county complete flexibility, but at the end of the day, as you accurately indicated, it's up to the commission to determine the priorities of funding in the within the county budget. And I think that it's your intent to continue funding operations as is relative to the funding streams that exist in the specific GRTs agreements today.
All
And
right.
Mr. Cox will thank you because it makes accounting a whole lot.
Right. Any other comment? There being none, there was a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? It appears there was no opposition and the vote was unanimous on ordinance 112.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I need a motion to go out of the public hearing and back
No.
into? the
Once you take action on the ordinance, the hearing is automatically closed.
Thank you. All right, that gets us to item number 5, which is considering the creation of a special revenue fund, herein named the Senior Citizens Fund. Kim Martin, Deputy Chief Financial Officer.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So I'm here before you. Let me start off again. Good afternoon, Chairman Fortner and Commissioners. I come before you today to ask for the consideration of the creation of a special revenue fund for the Senior Citizens Fund. Just to give a little bit of a history, the Lower Valley Senior Center and Blanco Valley or Blanco Senior Center was originally being overseen by the Northwest New Mexico Senior Incorporated umbrella. And they kind of oversaw the operations of these two senior centers. However, they just recently indicated that they no longer wanted to provide that service. And after doing a little bit of research, no other entity was willing to take over the operations. So San Juan County has agreed to operate the centers, and the city of Farmington has offered to apply for the grant that would help us support these centers, and they will wind up transferring us that money for these two senior centers. We would like to create a special revenue fund that will restrict these funds to be used only for these centers. And then just to give another little bit of a history, they used to be accounted for in our outside agencies fund, and we used to allocate about $38,000 to help operate them every year. With us moving it to San Juan County and we operate it, our cash transfer will only be about $12,000. So it'll save us a little bit of money in the long run, as we will get the grant money to help run it, and then we'll also be receiving donations. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Crowley.
Mr. Chair, of the 12,743 that's expected to be needed to be transferred from the general fund, is that just to get us through June 30th?
No, sir. This is the total amount of transfer for the entire fiscal year 21. As this will go into effect as of July 1.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a question for Manager Stark. Hey, you've looked this all over and agree with it, right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sullivan, yes. This is what I reported back to you, 2 or 3 months ago when the Northwest New Mexico Seniors Incorporated Board decided not to respond to the RFP. We weren't certain who was going to respond at that point in time. Ultimately, the city of Farmington decided to step up and apply on behalf of the 3 cities in the county. Ultimately, they'd like to serve as the fiscal agent over this grant. They won't receive the actual grant agreement until an award of or notice of award until the end of May. And so all the estimates we have in front of you are pretty rough. But yes, in answer to your question, this is something we need to do. We need to continue to provide these much needed services to our seniors, both in Blanco and at Lower Valley. And the only way to do this is for us to bring the basically 6 employees, 4 at Lower Valley, 2 at Blanco, that would become county employees now. The plan is to have those folks apply for positions the first week of June, to ultimately go through the interview process and have them on board June 29th for orientation and ready to start work as a county employee as of July 1st. So but this is absolutely something we need to do if we want to continue providing, at this point, just home delivered meals because of COVID-19, but eventually to provide congregate meals once again at the senior centers once we're able to open things back up.
Any other questions there, Sully?
No, that's all. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? There being none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It appears there is no opposition and the vote was unanimous. All right. Next is Mr. Martin again, which is item number 6, which is consideration of proposed fiscal year 21 interim budget. Kim Martin.
Thank you, Chairman Fortner and Commissioners. I come before you to ask for approval of our FY21 proposed interim budget. Just to kind of let you know, it's been a very challenging budget cycle. However, we were able to get the budget to balance and still be able to meet the state's mandated 3/12 required reserve for the general fund and 1/12 required reserve for the road fund. The way we were able to obtain that is through the help and cooperation of all of our departments, reviewing and reducing their operating expenditures. And we've also frozen 18 positions, and we also eliminated 1 position due to the termination of a JPA for Crime Stoppers. We're also going to, and the freezing of the positions and the eliminating of 1 position was a cost savings of $945,409. So that was a big help in trying to get this balanced budget. We've also, there has been an anticipated revenue reduction in GRT and oil and gas. A lot of it has to do with just the economy in general, but some of it will also be reflected with GRT. But we were still able to get the budget balanced. The general fund expenditures overall decreased by 3.56%. With the outside agencies, the interim budget has been reduced by $149,767, which equates to about 27.68% reduction from the FY20 final budget. This percentage includes the 38,800 removing the Lower Valley and Waco Senior Centers, and with your approval that you just gave to move them into the 219 fund under San Juan County's umbrella. And then our budgeted revenues is around is at $103,535,42. Our general fund revenues seem to be a little bit higher, and it's due to the HB 479 and HB 326 that you all just approved for those ordinances to de-earmark those funds. And so our revenues in the general fund is now $53,261,450, which is 51.44% of total revenues. In May, whenever we received the March sales for GRT, we saw a slight uptick, and it was primarily due to all the purchases made in preparation of the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders issued by the governor.
The hoarding?
Yes, that's correct. And in June will probably be more of a true reflection of how much COVID-19 has affected our economy and our GRT since the stay-at-home orders went into effect. And then also in July, we'll also see probably more of a reduction. But with that being said, the gross receipts tax for the FY21 budget reflects approximately, oops, wait a minute, sorry. So the gross receipts tax is approximately 15.9%. which equates to about $5,655, golly geez, $5,655,429, which is a reduction for our GRT, which Jim had gone over with you guys during the budget workshop. So, but as we indicated before, we still were able to balance our budget. Gas production has experienced a 35% decrease so far in the FY20 budget. And on top of that, we also factored an additional 3.7% decrease in hopes that it won't go down too much further. Hopefully things will start to pick back up again. Let's see here. Our total budgeted expenditures is at $123,181,906. There is currently no step increase included in the FY21 budget for San Juan County Communications Authority or Criminal Justice. San Juan Water Commission's board did approve for them to have a 2% step increase and a 2% COLA. Of the total expenditures, 42.84% is allocated towards the general fund and sub-fund operations. 47.83% is allocated towards special revenue and component units. 5.07% is allocated to capital projects, and the remaining 4.26% is allocated towards debt service. Another budget workshop is scheduled for July 21st due to all the uncertainties that are affecting this budget cycle. The final approval of the budget would be on July 28th, and then it must be submitted to the DFA by July 31st. The DFA would be scheduled to approve our interim budget by no later than July 1. And the interim budget will be in effect until the final budget is approved by the DFA by September 1. And I stand for any questions.
Mr. Manager, any comment on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. Big hats off, as Ms. Martin indicated, to our elected officials and department heads who once again, this is 2 consecutive years in a row. Quite frankly, it's probably 10 years what we've been working in austere type conditions, but specifically the last 2 years to reduce operating expenses. And I think coming in with the reduction of 3.56% from the previous year's interim budget is a tremendous testament to the hard work that's taken place to find truly the pennies in the couch cushions. I keep referring to that because that's where we're at. We're trying to run things as absolutely lean and mean as we can and still provide the same level of services to our citizens, and that's what this budget allows for. And you know, commissioners, this is a testament to the fiscal management and budget oversight of our commission and the elected officials and department heads. We would not be in this position that we're in to, at least with these level 1 cuts that we're proposing, of, as Ms. Martin indicated, a 16% reduction in GRT, the 40% loss that we're anticipating in oil and gas equipment and oil and gas production expenses, or not expenses, but revenue. That couldn't have been done if we weren't coming into this budget year with a 37% cash reserve, which was 12% above the state's 3/12 reserve requirement. That previously, when this commission, when we refinanced some bonds, the majority of the proceeds from those bonds were used to handle deferred maintenance associated with various county buildings. And so today we're entering this pandemic, this potential budget crisis that we're preparing for in really good shape, knowing that the majority of our large maintenance needs in the county have been satisfied. And so that truly is something that, you know, is a testament, like I said, once again, to what the oversight and management of the budget by the commission. You know, the positions that we're down, we've worked really hard to find operational efficiencies. As we saw the detention center population decreasing, we were able to freeze positions there. We had 8 detention officer positions that were associated with the adult detention center that had been frozen. So it's an effort of all of us to make this work. Of course, we hope that we don't see reductions below the 16% level. As you all know, we discussed during the workshop, we've got other solutions to bring forth to you. Should that arise, we plan on having monthly budget meetings with you to analyze the situation at hand and track revenues very closely. We probably stand better than most entities, just by the fact that we do have a quarter of our revenues associated with the collection of property taxes, which has remained pretty stable. And Deputy Treasurer Talby indicated to me earlier today that collections are actually at 95% for the year. So we haven't seen what potentially could have been some delinquency associated with those revenues. And unlike municipalities who depend upon a large percentage of their budget coming from gross receipts tax and the economic activity associated with the economy, it's approximately 40% for us. So, and wow, how encouraging. Of course, we know there's probably, some news along the way that's not going to be good, but to have the first month or over half of the month, and the public health order went into effect March 12th, that we're $60,000 over budgeted revenues for GRT in the month of March was very helpful as well. So that all said, we're presenting, as mentioned, a balanced budget to you. I can stand for any other additional questions you might have.
Comment, questions? Crowley? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Move. And second, moved and seconded, Commissioner Totocini. Any other discussion? There being none, those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed say no. All right, it appears the vote was unanimous, as I heard no opposition. And therefore, that gets us to report from County Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, as we've done, and I've done, I'd like to defer to our emergency manager, Mike Mestis, to give you a COVID update relative to the response efforts from emergency management, and then I'll fill in any blanks along the way and a couple updates for you all after that. So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I come before you today to give you an update from the Emergency Manager's Office and the Emergency Operations Center for Tuesday, May 19th, week 11, day 81 of the COVID-19 for San Juan County. Obviously, we continue in pre-phase 1 operations from what the governor gave us. And what does that mean? Obviously, the golf courses are open now. It lets us provide curbside service and pickup delivery for our non-essential retailers. She allowed us to have our firearms shops open, but for appointment only sales. We continue to have the stay-at-home order, and we've also been directed at this time to wear masks when we're out in public. Obviously, we look forward to phase 1. Hopefully that'll be June 1st, but there's been no information on that yet. So what does phase 1 look like? Phase 1 will look like we may operate at 25% of the fire code capacity for retailers. And what are retailers? Any business that sells goods directly to the ultimate consumer or end users. What that doesn't include is entertainment venues such as movie theaters, concert halls, or amusement parks. So under phase 1, other non-essential businesses like office spaces, call centers, those places may operate only at 25% of pre-crisis state staffing levels. Employers should continue to work from home, telework policies whenever possible. And finally, in phase 1, when we get there, houses of worship will only be able to operate at 25% occupancy. Some priorities at the EOC this week. Beginning this week, I must travel to Milan, New Mexico, if you want to come with me, to pick up PPE for San Juan County, as the National Guard will be coming off of orders, so they won't be delivering PPE to us. So the emergency manager has to go to these central hubs to get PPE, and I'll do that every Thursday. I've continued helping the community, and now I've started working with the dental community for PPE. The dentists have donated their PPE at the beginning of this COVID-19. Now, as they want to start getting back to work under phase 1, they need PPE. So Homeland Security has made that a priority in helping them get that PPE back. So that's one of my priorities, to help them get back into business. Continue to help the nursing homes. Our homeless shelter has come to fruition, and I thank PMS and Chief Burke at Farmington Fire for help with that project. And that project is now open with 4 people at the Rimrock Motel. So that homeless shelter has come to fruition.
Who's paying for that?
The Department of Health is providing vouchers for that. They are also providing food service, but PMS is doing the medical on that. And they're also getting reimbursed through Medicare, if you remember.
I don't remember the details.
I'll find that out. An item of note that I do want to pass to you, and possibly our PIO will get that information as well, is it's upset a lot of our citizens on social media that the Department of Health is not updating the numbers daily like they have been. We've been getting some calls. Our PIO has been fielding those calls on social media. They're only doing it twice a week. I do send you my sit rep daily, and those numbers are updated daily. But for citizens on social media, those are only, again, twice a week. And their answer was that they've been busy and they can't fill those daily numbers correct.
And Mike, you might want to add the Navajo Nation is not reporting.
And also, yeah,
Go
thank
ahead.
you, County Manager Stark. Also, the Navajo Nation is not reporting those numbers daily as well. And
4 cases by county.
4 cases by county. They're only doing regions, so therefore our San Juan County numbers will not be correct as it relates to the Navajo Nation as well. And in closing, the Department of Health has mandated more testing in our area. Kirtland and McGee Park to be announced this next week. What they have completed is Shiprock last week, Walmart, P&M Power Plant, the employees. They've also been down to Nageezi, and they've been testing at the local health office this week. And lastly, I just want to thank you for your support, Mr. Chair, your words of encouragement each week at the hospital, for your support, Commissioner Crowley, the Emergency Operations Center weekly. Makes me feel good when our leaders support our office and what we're doing. And lastly, I want to thank our county manager, Mike Stark, who's been through this through 81 days, through thick and thin with me, filling those calls. And I thank you for your leadership and your support as well. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions? Thank you. All right. Thank you. We're still, now we're at, are you done?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple adds to that, if I could. And so related to testing, San Juan Regional put out a note this week that they would only be conducting external assessment testing Monday and Wednesday. They're not going to conduct testing this Friday because of the upcoming holiday, and likewise, they're not providing external assessment testing the following Monday. The New Mexico Department of Health is providing testing now as testing is available, and they'll test folks who are not symptomatic, and that testing is running Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I believe it's from 8 to 9:30. I'm trying to find my notes here. Sorry about that. There we go. Specifically, that is 8:30 to 10 a.m. And so that is available now in the community. And I think the assumption is that will continue, Mike, as a drive-up event every week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So that's important for our community to know as they're trying to access testing. San Juan Regional is still only testing those folks who were symptomatic if you were to go to their external drive-up assessment. 2 other things. We did submit successfully our build grant application for $2 million to the federal government yesterday, and we are to be notified on the fruits of our labor there by the end of September. So it does take a while for them to score, review and score applications. So just so you all know what the timeline is associated with that. With the state of New Mexico, a lot of discussion regarding DFA's letter to municipalities and counties as it relates to capital outlay grants. The state is proactively looking at any general fund grants, and for us, those were all of our grants from last year, which included the film studio grant that was for $1 million. Initially, the thought was they were going to sweep all those grants regardless of how much progress you'd made with expenditures. They've since rescinded that course of action. And if you have any expenditures encumbered against your general fund grants, at this point, the state's saying those grants are off limits from being swept back to help the state with their own budget shortfall. So all of our grants that we have that were general fund from last year had encumbrances. In fact, most of them were quite a ways along. So we're in good shape there. This year, we received a number of grants that were all severance tax bond grants. And per the guidance of the state, as of right now, those grants are all safe. They're not looking at sweeping severance tax bond grants. So that is good news, because there was a concern, certainly here and then statewide, that those are a lot of important dollars for a lot of important capital outlay, capital projects that could be swept. And then last but not least, I don't think we reported it in full last time. The news had just come out with Enchant Energy and New Mexico Tech receiving the $22 million grant for the demonstration carbon capture well, which will help to further that project and give them a potentially viable source of being able to dispose of CO2 versus being able to stick the CO2 in a pipeline and sell it for enhanced oil recovery in the Permian.
Because right now, that's not an option.
Probably not. I bet that's not a very good option at all. And then we do have one proposed project that I think is significant, and there'll be a public information webinar being conducted by the BLM on May 27th at 6 p.m. And it's to inform the public about a proposed project that's just to the north and west, or actually almost due north of San Juan Generating Station. It's the Shiprock Solar LLC, and they're proposing a utility scale photovoltaic solar and battery storage facility on 1,980 acres of BLM land, along with a little bit of adjacent private land. But they are proposing a project that would produce 372 megawatts. I think the exciting news related to this project, if it were to come to fruition, assuming the generally accepted to date cost of installation for solar, it's about $1 million a megawatt. And that all of that would reside within the Central Consolidated School District. So that's the potential of $372 million being put on the tax rolls, which if we could get this project along with hopefully the PRC, holding P&M accountable for in compliance with the Energy Transition Act and another 450 megawatts of power here, that would be very helpful to solve some of the budget shortfalls that we potentially could see here. So just wanted to bring that project to your attention and awareness of that meeting. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Reports from department heads and elected officials. Come on up, Chief. For the commissioners that are listening by phone, identify yourself, please.
Fire Chief John Mueller, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mr. Stark asked me to update you on the mandate issued by the state forester last week for early fire restrictions on all non-municipal, non-federal, and non-tribal land statewide. As you know, everything has revolved around coronavirus for several months now, and we may have not been paying attention to the drought, but a lot of people are. And we are currently in D2 severe drought with no expectation of severe weather changing it. So it's likely going to go to D3 extreme drought very soon. I assume that's why she issued that fire restriction. It was soon followed by the U.S. Forest Service, City of Farmington, BLM, and Navajo Nation. So everybody around us has entered some level of restrictions. So we also followed suit and quit issuing burn permits and are following the recommendations issued by the city. Stand for any questions on that if anybody has any.
That's me. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other department heads? Looks like Ms. Shelby is walking up for the record, so she doesn't punch anybody. This is Tanya Shelby. She is the county clerk.
Thank you, Chairman Fortner. Chairman and members of the commission, I thought I would provide you with an update on how our election is going so far. As you are aware, early voting at our alternate sites did start on the 16th with the exception of 2. As of today, we've had 1,061 early voters. We have sent out 10,203 absentee ballots. Of those, 2,626 have been returned. So the early voting experiences, I have received quite a few compliments. The voters feel safe. The workers feel safe. And I would just like to point out, first of all, that my office could not do that without the help of, our emergency manager, who I know thanked all of you, but I also want you to know we thank him, and also Stuart. He's been very instrumental in making sure that I have everything and that my workers and my voters have everything. And along with that, to conduct an election, it's of course for this one, it starts there, but finance, payroll, our maintenance department, all of the sneeze guards that I call them sneeze guards, that have all been prepared. And we have, as of right now, I feel like we have everything we need to get us through Election Day. So I'm sure you're wondering what the numbers were for the 2016 primary election. So I do have those for you. So 1,235 ballots were sent out then, and 1,036 were returned. 13,376 voters voted either early or on Election Day. So the voters are definitely voting absentee for this election and staying safe as we've recommended. I stand for any questions.
So total early is only 1,061. And, but 10,000 absentee. That's a new record, isn't it?
It is a new record, Chairman Fortner.
Wow.
It is. My office has been extremely busy.
Yeah, I know.
We had planned for a busy year.
Right.
We really did. Just with, of course, with all the challenges that every department is facing with this virus, it's shifted our focus now. Everybody's folding ballots and putting labels on envelopes.
Now, tell me, the absentee ballots, you're going to have so many. Is there something about when you can start opening them?
Chairman Fortner, HB 407 changed the law. It used to be where we could only start 5 days prior to the election, but now it's based on the number of ballots that are sent out. So because we have reached the 10,000 mark, we could actually have started today. So we will be starting early. I have not confirmed the exact date yet.
And then it's interesting. If someone requests an absentee ballot, you say you've got them. Did you say they came back from not being mailed, or that's how many people have already sent back? I didn't understand that.
So the 2,626 are ones we have received back. So of the 10,203 that went out, 2,626 voters have already returned their ballots.
I see.
We have 2 weeks to go.
Have you heard of any incidents? I saw a couple where people say they got an absentee ballot but didn't request it.
Chairman Fortner, no.
Mm-hmm.
They have to request an absentee ballot in order for us to send it to them. They have to provide us the address they want it mailed, and we have to have their application.
So if someone said that, then maybe they're misinformed.
Chairman Fortner, my guess is they were confused.
Right.
Absentee voting, especially for San Juan County, most voters want to go vote early.
Right.
So getting an absentee application that was automatically sent to them, I would imagine that they filled it out because they knew they wanted to vote in the primary election, and they sent it back to us. Maybe not realizing what they were requesting.
Okay. Sounds
but
good.
Definitely, if you ever have any voters or constituents that have any questions, have them call us and we can provide them the information.
Any questions, comments? All right, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
All right, we're still under department heads and elected officials. All right, that takes us to public comments input from the general public. And there were a number of ways to deliver them, and that's either hand delivered, mailed to county commission comments, faxed or emailed, or submitted via digital. There have been a couple that did that. And so this one is from someone named Linda McCoy. And basically her comment is, if anyone running would do something about the deplorable conditions at Memory Gardens, you would be elected without a problem. The second person is Vicky Ives, I-V-E-S, and she says, we need help. Our family members' graves at Memory Gardens are collapsing. The grounds are in such a mess. A lot of the headstones are buried with mud. We have been begging for years for a solution. The owners in Phoenix don't care. Just buried my mother last February. Her and dad's sites has collapsed. We need your help to make this illegal. I'm begging. So I've referred a number of comments to our county manager and to our county attorney, Mr. Echols, if you wouldn't mind. It's an ongoing issue, and the question is there anything that the county can do as far as, can we provide assistance, financial assistance to reseed, to do something to shore things up? Mr. Echols?
Really, there isn't anything because it's a private or profit business.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us are concerned because when we bought plots, we were told it was a perpetual care facility and paid extra for that privilege, and it doesn't appear that our money's being spent.
And so is it your opinion that the only remedy is going to be by them hiring a private lawyer?
Unless there's some potential criminal activity for misappropriating funds that were to be held in trust for the benefits of the people who bought lots.
And so that would have to come from someone who bought a lot and to see their contract?
Yeah, or through the district attorney or attorney general.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's deplorable.
It is deplorable. I've seen pictures. Something's got to be done. Maybe we need to refer it to the Attorney General's office. All right, and then the final one is from Pamela Moltke, M-O-L-T-K-E. If the ruling class is not subject to the rule of law is broken. There is no law. Law enforcement is no longer governed by the rule of law. They carry I'm reading it as it says, the orders of the ruling class were tyrants. They are now controlling people. Protect and serve is disappearing quickly. There is no law that provides for social distancing, etc. What are you going to do about this? All right, well, that's an interesting question and interesting comments. Is there any other comments, input from the general public? There's not. Do we have a need for closed session?
Mr. Chairman, we do not.
We have a motion to adjourn. So moved. It's been moved and I second it. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. To close? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? There is none. It appears it was unanimous that we adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned.